who I used to watch very often and actually like quite a bit and haven't seen in a little while because the NFL's just like that. You could have a guy that you really like, and then all of a sudden he falls off the face of the earth. You don't see him for years, and then he pops up again, and you go, what? That guy's still in the league? That's how I feel about Cordarrelle Patterson, who has popped up, quite frankly, on the New England Patriots. And I read an article earlier. The Patriots have given everything to Cordarrelle Patterson that he needs to thrive as a receiver. And if by everything you mean Tom Brady, then you're correct. And I think that Cordarrelle Patterson, I'm interested in seeing the kind of season that Cordarrelle Patterson's going to have, because a lot of wide receivers are not the dynamic, game-changing wide receivers. Most of them aren't. There are a lot of really, really good ones. There are a handful of great ones. Julio Jones is a great one. Antonio Brown is a great one. Larry Fitzgerald is a great one throughout his entire career. And even Larry Fitzgerald can't make your team better if your quarterback is terrible. Larry Fitzgerald, there's only but so much that man can actually do. Like, we've seen this guy use his entire career in Arizona, and there's a lot of respect that we have for him for sticking it through with the Arizona Cardinals through his entire career, using up basically all of his prime with a team never gave him a good quarterback. Carson Palmer, the 2 years with Carson Palmer, that's the best that we've seen with Larry Fitzgerald. We had a year with Kurt Warner. That was also a great year. But overwhelmingly, we've seen just a who's who of nobody quarterbacks passing through Arizona. And even the great Larry Fitzgerald cannot save you if your quarterback stinks. Cordarrelle Patterson is not even in like the mid-tier echelon at this point of wide receivers, even though Tennessee fans know Cordarrelle Patterson at one point was the most dangerous man in the game. Watching Cordarrelle Patterson at the University of Tennessee, which is crazy to me because I wasn't even a Tennessee, like I'm not a Tennessee fan. I just liked watching Cordarrelle Patterson in college. And even in Minnesota with the Vikings, when they drafted him, Cordarrelle Patterson still had every now and then a number of plays that would just make your jaw drop out of your head. You couldn't believe how fast he was, how athletic he was, especially in the return game. Cordarrelle Patterson was it. And he's obviously struggled because it's hard to be a good return guy in the NFL that's just a return guy. Even Devin Hester, who's the greatest return guy that ever played the game, even Devin Hester really struggled when, like, outside of that single season with the Bears where he just, I think, what did he have, like 23 touchdowns and punt and kick returns? Even beyond that season, teams really struggle to find a way to include Devin Hester in the offense, to get him to line up as a wide receiver. You want to get the ball in that guy's hands more than just special teams. And that's fair, but that makes perfect sense. Devin Hester, his quarterback was Rex Grossman. Like, Devin Hester was never going to be a game-changing receiver, but like Devin Hester did Hester ever have the chance to be average if Rex Grossman was going to be your quarterback? That's what I want to know. Like, did he ever even have the chance to be average? Because I don't think he did. It's just when you're a good receiver, not great. When you're an average receiver, not good, you really rely on your quarterback. Like, I wonder how good Mohamed Sanu would be if he was with a lesser quarterback to Matt Ryan. And Matt Ryan is the guy that we think of as being pretty good, not great. Like, you take Mohamed Sanu and you put him, I don't know, you put him on last year's Browns with Deshaun Kaiser. Like, is he any good? Because I don't think so. But Cordarrelle Patterson has an opportunity to be a really good wide receiver. Why? He's playing with Brady. And Brady has this ability to elevate guys to another level where you've never heard of these people before. Like Kevin Hogan. Kevin Hogan is a guy, the only reason I knew he existed last season was because he was in Dolphins Hard Knocks once, and he was like the most interesting guy. After Chad Ochocinco got booted off the team, like Kevin Hogan, the 7-11, they called him 7-11 because he was always open. He was the most interesting guy on Hard Knocks because Joe Philbin, as a head coach, fundamentally boring human being. Maybe a nice dude, but really, really not interesting. I looked at Kevin Hogan and I was like, okay, this guy's the most interesting guy on Hard Knocks. Next thing you know, Hogan's popping up in New England with the Patriots, and he's looking like a bona fide stud of a receiver. And Kevin Hogan's pretty quick. He runs solid routes. Cordarrelle Patterson is actually fast. I didn't realize Cordarrelle Patterson was still in the league. I mean, I'm glad he is. I just didn't know. He fell off. Like, after the Vikings, I don't know what happened to that dude. This happens in the NFL all the time. Guys just get displaced in time. You just don't know where that guy went. Not at all. You know what I mean? It's so crazy to me. It's the most bizarre thing. So I wish Cordarrelle Patterson the best in New England with the Patriots. I'm sure he's going to do well. Tom Brady's his quarterback. And provided that Tom Brady doesn't fall apart all of a sudden, he's going to do great. He's going to do great. You're listening to All New Nougat Radio and NougatRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. Olive Branch Mediterranean Deli. They've got a number of great specials tomorrow. Paputsakia chicken shawarma with homemade garlic mayonnaise, stickless pork souvlaki, and green lemon chicken, as well as the vegan option kaiwaji. Do you want to know what that is? You have to go to Olive Branch Mediterranean Deli to find out. I was there earlier today. I had their spaghetti and meatballs. It was to die for. It's absolutely fantastic. And also there's a hometown feel. You get a home-cooked meal at Olive Branch. Olive Branch, by the way, located at the intersection of Ringgold Road and Belvoir Road across the street from the Marathon gas station. LSU still doesn't have a quarterback. And this is perplexing to me because LSU is one of those schools you don't even have to be a good recruiter. I could recruit for LSU. How do I know this? Because Ed Orgeron's recruiting for LSU, and he's still getting good talent. He's not getting great talent, right? He's not being Jeremy Pruitt. He's not being Kirby Smart. He's not being Nick Saban. He's struggling a little bit, but he's still getting solid players because people want to play for LSU. It's one of the blue blood schools in the SEC, and they've managed to get talent, but they haven't managed to get a quarterback. And it's weird. Is this not strange? This is something that Les Miles struggled with forever, is the fact that he never was able to somehow get a quarterback. Les Miles already not like a big offensive guy. Les Miles is the dude that will just let your offense die in a valley, just go to complete absolute waste. But at the same time, that was one of the things that Ed Orgeron was supposed to fix. And they had the offensive coordinator, Matt Canada, come in. Matt Canada's gone now. But that was supposed to be one of these baby steps towards fixing this offense and getting some kind of offensive proficiency. They've never found it. And I think part of it is that they just don't have a quarterback. There's nobody at that position on that roster. And it's alarming to me because they don't seem to struggle getting talent at like every other position. It seems like they seem to know how to get DBs and wide receivers. Like Odell Beckham went to LSU. They didn't have a quarterback, so we didn't notice. But they're great players, great offensive players. Right? Like if you look at some of the guys that are on NFL rosters now, Darius Geis just got drafted by the Redskins. Leonard Fournette drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Odell Beckham Jr. with the Giants. There are a lot of really talented offensive guys in the league. And they were never allowed to blossom because Coach Ed Orgeron never found a quarterback. How many years in a row have you heard this? How many years in a row has this been true? Has this been true for 5 years? That LSU doesn't have a quarterback? I think that's been true for 5 years. Half a decade. This school has never had a signal caller they could trust. And we've seen them. We've seen them try. But at some point, you have to wonder, is this always going to be the Achilles heel of LSU? They need to think about life after Ed Orgeron. Ed Orgeron is clearly not the guy. He is and he isn't. He is in that Ed Orgeron stands for everything that the state of Louisiana stands for. He is everything. He's happy. He's chipper. He's happy to be awake in the mornings. He drinks way too much caffeine. You can't understand a word he's saying. He's the most Cajun man that ever lived. Like Ed Orgeron as the actual mascot of LSU makes more sense than Ed Orgeron as the head coach of LSU. Just because, like, as the head coach, they're not winning. And I don't think he's capable of taking them there. I think that Ed Orgeron's got to be a coordinator. I think that's what it's got to be. I don't think you can win with Ed Orgeron as your head coach, but I think also if you hire a new head coach, you've got to go with an offensive guy who can convince a quarterback to go there, because the SEC is changing, and I'm watching the SEC evolve. When I first started watching SEC football back in 2006, the SEC was defensively oriented. Alabama could just throw out anybody at quarterback. Now, Alabama's got a real quarterbacking duel on their hands. I mean, Jalen Hurts is not the most prolific and greatest of quarterbacks, but Jalen Hurts is really good. And he's really good as a college quarterback. He knows how to use his legs. He knows how to use his body in space to make plays, even make plays passing. He's not the best passer, but he doesn't make the kind of back-breaking mistakes. And Nick Saban loves that. Jalen Hurts is your prototypical Alabama quarterback who can run. And they've got Tua Tagovailoa. Like, Tua is legitimately a stud passing the ball. We've never seen Alabama with that. We haven't seen it. Well, how about someplace like Tennessee? Tennessee's got a quarterback battle going on. Right? Like, Georgia has managed to have and recruit 3 5-star quarterbacks in a row. They got Jacob Eason. Then Jacob Eason gets hurt, but it's okay because they get Jake Fromm. And now they got another 5-star kid waiting in the wings. Like, if Jake Fromm ever starts to slip up or he doesn't start to achieve his potential, you've got another guy who can come out there and dominate as a thrower of the football 5-star quarterback. I mean, you just see this evolution of SEC quarterbacking. Every team is starting to find a guy who can really throw it. Auburn has got Jarrett Stidham, who is not at all your typical Gus Malzahn quarterback. Gus Malzahn could do anything with Cam. Anything. And Cam's not like the greatest, especially in college. He wasn't the greatest thrower of the football. But you have a guy that offensively gifted, especially with his legs. Gus Malzahn loves that. Jarrett Stidham can run a bit, but Jarrett Stidham's not that. Jarrett Stidham's more of a passer. He's more of a pocket guy. And he's great at it. Jarrett Stidham could legitimately have of the SEC quarterbacks, and it's going to be tough because I don't know if he's actually better than the Bentley kid in South Carolina. And I'm certainly not sure if he's better than what's his name at Missouri. Like, I don't know if he's better, but he's got the best offense around him, and he is a very talented pocket passer. We're looking at an SEC that is more about throwing the football than it ever has been, and only one school has managed to not be able to figure this out. It's LSU. LSU has not managed to figure this out. And it's going to be their undoing because they're good enough to compete. They're not good enough to win that division. The West is too tough. They're not better than Alabama. They're not better than Auburn. They're not better than A&M. So, I mean, we're looking at maybe 4th at best for LSU. But in terms of being able to compete on a game in and game out basis, I mean, LSU should be, as far as the talent that they have on that roster, right there. And you can't put them there. You really can't. Why can't you? No quarterback. It's a big problem. And you hope that they have the ability to address it eventually. You're listening to All New Nougat Radio, NougatRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. Let's take a jump to the NFL. Just jump up a league here. Because the NFL has a bunch of new coaches in place. But one of the coaches that I find to be the most fascinating and the coach that I think everyone finds to be deeply fascinating is John Gruden. Because we're not sure if John Gruden's actually a good football coach. And all the rumors have been put to bed. John Gruden is going to be the head coach of the Raiders this season, and he is going to be a fixture in NFL talking points all season long. And one of his tight ends, Jared Cook, has told reporters that John Gruden pulled out video from a game that appeared to take place in the 1970s. Here's a quote from Jared Cook. He said he's bringing out film from like 1976 when you ain't even think they had film, which that's funny that he didn't think that there was film back in the 70s. Grainy film where you can barely see the players. And he added some of the plays and said schemes originate there, which I think that's kind of cool that John Gruden went out and pulled up film from 1976. But also, a lot of people are afraid that John Gruden is stuck in the past, and John Gruden pulling out film from 1976 doesn't help the fact that John Gruden appears to be stuck in the past. There is no NFL game. And as much as I respect the legends that played, like one of my favorite football players of all time is a football player I was not even alive to see play his best football, Marcus Allen. Right? I was born in 1990. Marcus Allen was long done playing football by the time I came around. But every time I go back and watch film of Marcus Allen, I just love to watch the guy run. He's so good. But there's almost nothing that you can learn watching film from 1976 outside of going, okay, well, this is the beginning of some of the stuff that we're using. We throw the ball now more than we ever have. Quarterbacks line up in the shotgun more than they ever have. NFL offenses resemble more of a modern college football spread attack than they resemble anything that happened in football in 1976. Right? Like this seems like an obvious thing. And if John Gruden is having his players watch this film simply to prove a point, simply to prove that everything that you are learning has been done before, then I guess go on ahead. But the fear that John Gruden does not know how to coach a modern NFL offense, because John Gruden last coached in the NFL roughly 11 years ago. And like John Gruden last coached in the NFL a very long time ago. And the game has changed from when John Gruden last coached to now. The game has changed a ton. And if that's the case, that it's been over a decade since John Gruden last coached, and the game has changed from then to now, why are you showing your players film from 1976? To help them do what? This is what I'm not understanding about John Gruden. This is not what I'm understanding about his particular game plan, any of his ideas. Look, you got to go out there and build some kind of a foundation. If this is the foundation that you're wanting to build upon, I suppose. But your players are already out of touch with this film. You have a player that doesn't realize that they had film in the 70s. I don't know when he thought film was invented, but he doesn't appear to have realized that they had film in the 70s. So you are showing him something that he literally did not know existed. I'm curious as to what it is that he's trying to have them do. John Gruden is under a lot of pressure. I think the Raiders have to win very quickly. They don't have to turn around instantly, but they have to win very, very quickly. And John Gruden's really good at challenging players, getting players to play up to a higher level than what they normally reach. John Gruden's good at all that stuff. What is John Gruden not good at? John Gruden might not be good at coaching the modern game of football. And I think if you are the Raiders, and if you are a Raiders fan, you might want to be marginally concerned about that. He's going to have people on his staff to help him. This is not going to be left up entirely to him. But the fact of the matter is, John Gruden has not coached football in over a decade. The game has changed. The game doesn't look anything like it did in 2008. How's he going to do that? You're listening to All New Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. Thank you for joining me today. Remember, folks, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch. And I'll see you in 23 hours. Make sure to check out those specials at Olive Branch Mediterranean Deli at the corner of Ringgold Road and Belvoir Road across the street from the Marathon Gas
David Toulis. I made the move 1 o'clock every weekday afternoon, 1 till 3, Nougat Radio.
92.7. 3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Accident reported at Lake Winnipesaukee. Reports say a child got his hand caught in the lap bar. An attendant ran over to help, and he got trapped too. And that's when the ride started to move. The attendant was able to break free just in time to escape. He was rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. The child was treated on scene. Spokesman says the issue is with training and not with the ride itself. A gang member who was indicted in the Athens Park Bloods RICO case was arrested accused of attacking a corrections officer with a makeshift knife. He had to be maced and hauled away. And